All right, I think we're going. Welcome, everyone. I'm Brian Brinkman from Osiris Media here. We are going live HFPod on tour, covering the August 7th show from Deer Creek, the second show at Deer Creek of a three-night run, first three-night run at Deer Creek since the summer of 2003. I'm really excited to be covering this. I'm going to be hanging out here very shortly. I'll bring him on in 1 second here with Arvind Gopalratnam of the Milwaukee Bucks, a huge Fish fan. Really, really excited to be talking with him about his experience at the show last night and kind of break down what happened in our second of 3 nights here at Deer Creek. I hope everyone out there in the Fish community is doing well. Middle night of a 3 night run is always, we don't know if the band's going to raise the bar. We don't know if they're going to kind of set the course and be a little bit more mellow. I thought it was a really interesting show last night and a really cool contrast in some cases to Friday. So we'll jump into that here in a second. Really quickly, before we get started, just want to remind everyone, HF Pod on Tour is presented by Shift Genuine Cannabis. They are fantastic partners in this endeavor, bringing HF Pod back. You may have seen over this last week that we announced a contest in partnership with Shift Genuine Cannabis. 2 tickets for the 30th and 31st of October in Las Vegas. There's a giveaway. You can register for those at at shiftcannabis.com. You can register every single day between now and Sunday night at Dick's. We will be announcing a winner during our live show Sunday afternoon from the lot at Dick's. All right, so I'm going to bring Arvin on here. Arvin, my dude, how are you?
Good, Brian. How are you, man? Nice to see you.
You as well, man. How are you feeling after well, I should pause. Like you are experiencing one of the most unique summers one could experience. You not only get to go see Fish for the first time in a year and a half, but you are a part of a world champion basketball team. How are you feeling? Have you like stepped down from the high that you were on 2 or 3 weeks ago, or like where are you at this point in time?
So it's been, like you said, a ridiculous summer. Like, and background to the audience, I'm also a father of 3. So there's a constant, like, chaotic lifestyle that I have to live, which is awesome and a blessing. But as you can see in the background over this way, I'm bringing the world championship everywhere we go. I wish I could bring the trophy with me on tour. That'd be awesome. But no, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a blur. I think it's like, I don't know, the light, maybe a little bit of that light at the end of the tunnel that we've all had the last kind of year and a half. So it's been awesome.
Totally.
It's been awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. I can't stress enough, like, bringing joy back into our lives is a good thing to have. Right. So thankfully my sports team delivered on that. I'm an avid Wisconsin sports fan across the board, and we haven't had many wins in our recent memories. So to get a win is awesome, but to do it with my colleagues, my coworkers, all that kind of stuff is pretty cool experience too. But now it's Fish World. I mean, we get the off season now for a little bit for basketball. The business still runs, but it's nice for us on the other side to, like, take a couple days off and go do the other things we love in life.
I was gonna say, yeah, you get the joy, but also like all this intensity around your basketball team, the Milwaukee Bucks, being in a deep playoff run, reaching the finals for the first time since 1974. Do I have that right?
Yeah, it's right around there.
Yeah, and then winning the first title since '71.
Yep.
All that is joyful. You and I spoke a couple weeks back for Undermine season 2, and I saw you on the prior to them winning the title, and you were a little bit more stressed out, and then afterwards it was like, okay, you're calm, relaxed, you're joyful, you're filled with all this like bliss. So now I get to see you coming off of the second night of a 3 night run, and you look just as happy as you did after the Bucks win.
I appreciate that. I probably sound the same, right? Like a little more hoarse than, like, prior to show or playoff run conversations. But no, you feel good. I think the playoff run for basketball, like, exposed me to events again, right? Getting back into the
Yeah.
world of people and organizing those types of things. So that got me mentally prepared for this run. But, like, like everybody in this world, when you're doing a 3 night run, it's like a marathon, right? So
Yeah.
you're not like, I'm readjusting to what the marathon of a 3 night run for Fish is, and so yeah, it's good to be back into that world again.
Well, let's jump into it. So you were here Friday and Saturday, and you're going to be here Sunday night as well. These are your first Fish shows of. I'm just going to call it now. I'm not even going to ask if it's okay. Of 4.0, your first Fish shows of the new era. You saw Fish last at MSG. Is that correct? Back in 2019.
Yeah, right before the year of 2020. Yeah, I saw a few of the shows in that MSG run, and yeah, these are the first few back. Yeah, my first shows of the summer tour. I've got a few more lined up for the fall. Hopefully, everything goes as planned, and yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. It's amazing to be back. Like, not only just on tour, but like for this one, it was physically like getting in a car, driving a few hours, like the process and the pilgrimage to the show was kind of like back again. And so
Yeah.
um, didn't have to hop on a plane this time, which was nice. And
Yeah.
so I think just in that whole like experience of getting back into shows, it's the anticipation is part of it too, right? The drive Friday morning to the Friday shows to the experience, like it's super fun to be back into it. And like as I'm sure everybody's listening and hearing, like they're just as good as ever before, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just as much fun and it's just as much of a pleasure to be at these shows. And it's just, I think there's also a level of like more appreciation for what we're getting to listen to and hear, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute as well.
Yeah, tell me like briefly that sense of anticipation. So you are hopping on to this tour about a week and change into it. Um, I won't be seeing my first shows until most likely Dick's, and that sensation you're talking about Friday waking up, making the drive down to Noblesville. Tell me like what was the anticipation like for you? Had you been listening to the shows along the way? Had you been feeling like connected to the tour at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all interconnected in so many different ways now to these tours, whether you're there or not, right? So through friends and just hearing
Totally.
like what have they heard, to following the Fish Twitter accounts on the road, to tuning in. I didn't tune in to any of the full live broadcast, but I did catch the live first couple songs that they would show on Facebook every once in a while
Sure.
for the shows. But so for me, it was just set list watching, just
Yeah.
seeing the kind of what songs are they playing, where are they connecting certain ones, where are they putting in some of the new songs. Uh, I don't even look at timestamps as much, like outside of the shows I'm at. So it's
Sure.
really just seeing like what have you played, what can I anticipate potentially getting. I think we all know, right? Like the repetition of certain songs and when they bring in
Sure.
certain things. So like I can easily say I was frustrated to see Yem and Fluffhead play in Nashville the 2 nights right before we were getting to Indiana. So outside of that, that's part of my prep. Like getting like excited and anticipated is, I'm sure like many people, just like, all right, what do they play? What might we get? What could they repeat
Sure.
from Alabama or whatever? So that's part of it. The drive is exhausting, of course, but hey, listen,
Yeah.
you're on such an adrenaline rush that like for whatever the process is to get to the show, it's just get there, just get there,
Yeah.
just get there. Like, and I think of any of the shows, like I'm the type of person, like I don't mind getting there like right when doors open, because it's like I just rather get there and not worry about traffic, take all the variables out of the
Sure.
equation. Like, so I think that's part of the like just the overall mindset of getting to the lot, getting to what just to the experience itself. I think it probably kicks in the most. The adrenaline kicks in the most is when like you get into that first traffic jam, like getting off the highway off 69, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, backup of cars, like awesome, like
Yeah.
this is what it's like again. But yeah, it's I follow it a little bit from a little bit of separation of like I don't want to hear anything quite yet, maybe outside of a couple songs here or there, but I go in fresh.
So, all right. So you knew kind of set list wise what was happening, but you wanted to, kind of separate yourself musically from what was going on. You heard a little bit about, like you said, the um, Facebook will like show the first song of each set. What was so Friday night? Just kind of briefly running through that. I personally thought was the strongest show of the tour thus far. I think that they came out with a, just clear mission set with the way that Carini, Wolfman's, and Sand all kind of pushed against the boundaries of those songs. Sand really just like built into this very blissful rock peak. I really enjoyed the latter half of the first set as well from a song selection standpoint. I'm always here for as many riffed songs as we can get. But specifically, that second set featured some jamming that felt to me, from what I've heard on this tour thus far, as it built off of some of the accomplishments and themes of the Chalk Dust Torture from Alpharetta, the Tweezer, the second set from Nashville, and then the Simple just dove off into interstellar space in a way that I feel like I haven't heard them do in a number of years. Coming in as fresh as you were, what was that second set like for you, and how did that what did that feel like musically, being in attendance to your first show back in a year and a half?
Yeah, that the second set, I think, was a continuation of kind of the momentum and energy they started in that first set. I've been to enough of these to know when they play certain songs, how they play certain songs, certain types
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
set openers, second set openers, all that kind of stuff, right? To get a Carini first set opener was cool, unique in itself, right? Just to set the momentum and energy for like a rockin' first show, and everything you said, right?
totally.
That first quarter of 3-4 songs kept that energy going to, I mean, even Walls of the Cave ending that first set. I echo the as many riff songs as possible. Like that was an awesome like little middle part of that first set. The second set was awesome because they kept that energy going. I think we always like get accustomed to expecting that no matter what that first set is, that second set's going to be a little, a little bit more experimental, a little bit more, let's build off kind of the energy of each other. And obviously not play as many songs, which is great. And so obviously I think it was an AC/DC bag to kind of tip off that first or second set, but that Blaze On
Yeah,
was awesome too. That was a exciting way to like, I think they got a really good amount of momentum going with Blaze On there that propelled them into the next couple songs. Simple for sure is a highlight. I think people are always going to remember, but I like that Blaze On a lot. I because I didn't listen to like a lot of the previous shows, I love hearing in retrospect that connectivity maybe of building upon previous show jams or
totally.
finding some of those key notes or new themes and songs or chords or tones even just right like that they're connecting into these new shows. But I think just as a fresh perspective, right, they were outstanding. The genesis and the creation of what each song was pretty awesome. And I think even hearing obviously on the podcast and some of the other stuff that you guys have done and other things we've been hearing, right, like the different effect pedals that Trey's been putting in, to the sound effects that Fishman's been putting in on the drums, to like I think we got a lot of context yesterday to why he does some of those, which was cool. But like not knowing that on
Part
Friday,
inspirational and part trolling.
yeah, and I love that, right? Like, but I
Yeah,
didn't know that on Friday. And when you hear some of those things and some of those jams, you're like, interesting.
yeah,
But to know that he was having fun with it is even better. To know that like it just made it stand out even more, right? Like
right.
as serious and as intentional as their collaboration was, right? Like they find ways to just throw in a random laugh in there, right? So it was super cool. I thought
Right.
that I think it led to just a really really awesome show. I mean, how often do you get a 3-song encore too?
Right.
I think Sanity goes as one of my favorite random songs you can get at a show, and to get it as a encore is pretty awesome as well. So yeah, no, I think the jamness, the bringing out kind of the unique songs that maybe they haven't shared in a while. I think there's a mix of a variety of reasons why it makes a pretty epic show.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And the sanity call in the encore was perfect. Like, uh, uh, just sets the tone of where we're at right now in kind of world history. I just like listening to that, laughing
Mhm.
along. Like I was like, this is the song of the times. Um, so shifting a little bit to
Yeah.
Saturday. So the Saturday show, our second of 3 shows at Deer Creek. I said this at the top, but this was the first 3-night run at Deer Creek since 2003. Previously, they had done a 3-night run at Deer Creek in the year 2000, and they haven't really played a ton of Deer Creek shows in the last decade or so. They did one off in '09 and 16, and then a pair of shows in 2010 and 2012. As someone who grew up in the Midwest as well, Deer Creek was, that was the venue, that and Alpine Valley were the venues I had to go to when I was first getting into fish. And I remember the first time I walked into Deer Creek feeling this like true vibe, like I am stepping into Grateful Dead fish, lore here right now. It's the same feeling I had when I went to Red Rocks or MSG. Um, 3-night runs, though, we were talking about this before we went live here. They're really interesting. Like you rarely get like three straight bangers. It's almost like the band kind of gives you like three acts of who they are. And what was your thought on what they were kind of communicating last night? Like what did you feel about last night's show compared to Friday?
Yeah, I think the way you described it, like three acts to a performance or to a weekend, is a great way to look at it, right? I think Saturday night's show was honestly drastically different than the first one, in so many regards, to the song selections, to the way they jammed in the second set, but most importantly, I think from the onset, the mood seemed a little bit different, right? It just seemed a little bit
Yeah,
more mellower. I think any crowd control show that show that starts with crowd control, right, has a little bit of a tone to it. I think, like anything, you can evolve beyond that, but I think in retrospect, you can look back and say, like, they maintained a pretty mellow tone throughout the
yeah,
entire show, even going into the second set with a mellower "Everything's Right" that led into an awesome jam, but it seemed like a calmer show, almost like "Hey, don't worry, this is a marathon. Like, after a rockin' Friday night, like, let's take Saturday night easy." And so that's a little of how I felt going through the show, kind of maybe looking back on it as maybe I anticipate and get excited for tonight. Like, it was a great kind of, I don't know, especially as I get older, it's like a great calming show in the middle of a 3-night run, which you don't get too often, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it's maybe that pace yourself moment in the middle of a 3-night run.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And as you were talking about like the mellow vibe of it and embracing that, I was thinking that like my three favorite moments of the show, listening from afar, were the Rogue, the Stash, and the What's the Use in the second set. I obviously loved, there was a great jam out of Everything's Right. There was a great jam out of Cross-Eyed and Disease, but Trey seemed to be putting something extra into his lead lines in the ballads, and I would even throw Waiting in there. That felt like your late second set Jerry ballad slot where it was placed coming out of a really cool Down with Disease. It felt to me like the band was almost, and this is watching from afar, but I got the impression that they played a show on Friday that was more connected and bigger than they expected to go on Friday. And we're kind of using Saturday to kind of step back and be a little bit more reflective. So you get the slower tunes, you get a little bit more emotion in it. Did you pick up that as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. I'd echo that a lot. It's funny. I'm going to these first couple shows with a close buddy from high school, who lives out here in Indy. These are actually his first fish shows ever. So it's kind of a unique
Wow.
experience that he's
Wow.
providing to us. And so to your comment about kind of the differences between Friday and Saturday night, I think there's one thing to think about, right? Like, us as the fish community who've seen so many of these have this perspective of what these shows are or what the ceiling can be. And I think Friday is a perfect example of that, right? But I think especially to the new ear of fish, and you said 4.0, there's always a new generation of fans or people that are listening to this music. And the way he described last night was, at times it was a little bit more accessible to some of the new
Mm,
music of fish. And I thought it was just a good word. I like that word
yeah.
of saying, like, yes, some of those songs were a little bit more accessible, right? Like, and I think that's some of what obviously Trey took the time to think about with these songs most recently during the pandemic, is putting this
Totally.
intentionality to make them accessible to people that he was feeling the same things with. And so Yeah, I felt that way. I think it just demonstrated another like example or notch in their repertoire, right? Like it's the breadth of what their shows come to their fans with. Like you can get one of those rocking all night rockers from the moment the first lick is played to the end.
Yeah.
You're going to get more of the intermixed shows that we traditionally get, where you'll get a couple ballads here and there. But I'd say yesterday was like, I would say very significantly, you felt that tone and that mellowness maybe throughout. And it was
Yeah.
great. And I think it brought you like, I mean, even to get an army of one was pretty cool. Like in that first set with a little page ballad there is awesome. And so I think whether it was the ballads themselves or just the new song itself, I think it was what, a new wave of hope, like a
Yep.
rocking little song that I think made it was an accessible song, right? Like maybe something to connect with a broader audience at times. And so I don't know, that's maybe how I think about it a little bit at times too, right? It's at times we go into these thinking like, do they play to the audience? How much does the audience play into things? How much is it their mood, right? At times, like they're
Yeah.
humans. Like, are they tired after a few days?
Sure.
They're back on tour, right?
Right.
So I think those are all the things that run through my head when I think about, all right, maybe it's a mix of both. Like they're making themselves accessible a little bit more.
Yeah, and I've thought about it a lot. I think those are some really astute points. And like one thought I had, just like as you were talking about it, is I feel like they've been playing a show like what they played last night a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, where they
Yeah.
intentionally are trying to give you a palette of who Fish is across a big spectrum. You have really well written, heartfelt songs like Crowd Control, Wave of Hope, Army of One, and then you have like these older, Everything's Right, I would throw in there as well. But then you have these older compositions like Stash in there, a newer composition like Drift While You're Sleeping. You're just getting like the whole package in a lot of cases, plus a good jam out of Everything's Right that I think will hold up as probably one of the strongest versions they've played of it. But one thing that to me is really telling of this being such a strong tour is in years past, and I think just back to summer 2019, when they would play a show like this, sometimes it would fall a little bit flat because it felt as though they were pushing their songs a little bit too much, and not like just like receding to the moment. Maybe that's just my perspective, but like I felt like last night was a really accomplished show for a band that has been in existence for almost 40 years and is really trying to showcase kind of a softer side of themselves and kind of a mellower, an older side, if you will. I mean, these guys are almost 60 years old doing a 3 week tour. You and I know, as young dads, 2 nights of Fish and my neck is hurting, my back is hurting. Like I can't even imagine what these guys feel. So I thought it was really cool that like they gave you that mellower side of them, but it really worked in a lot of cool ways.
It's uh it's the analogy I sometimes feel in the sports world, right? Like when the people that we are have this affinity to, we look at them as superheroes, and like when we see them in perfection, almost expect that replication of perfection in our own eyes, whatever perfection is, every single time. And without
Yeah,
realizing, like, we're all human. We all like literally like maybe slept weird the wrong way last night
sure.
to like, are dealing with this Indiana heat for the first time in 2 years, like these guys are too, probably. Like, we're human, right? And so
Yeah,
I love that they can still express the breadth of their musical influence, no matter however they're feeling, whatever they're feeling. And we can interpret it however we want, right? Maybe it is because they're in a different mood. Maybe it's just because they want to play those songs and they're fresh and new, and it's a different way to maybe set them up for later in the tour, right? Because I think you're starting to see a couple more repeats and
yeah,
from earlier in the tour, which I think is a great way that we have to appreciate that it's part of the process of getting to later in the tour too. I mean, these guys haven't played together for a couple of years. Like
yeah,
it's not lost on me that like you lose a little bit when you're that connected.
yeah,
It's going to take a few minutes to get back, but I think those are all great things to help figure out. And they've got such a welcoming community of us as fans to say like, cool, bring it on. And thankfully we get a third night of seeing like, all right, maybe we've gotten two bookends of what this tour performance might be like. And
Yeah.
I tend to think that maybe this third one is going to be a little bit closer to Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that, and I think I love the sports analogy, and it makes me think of, you know, the star for your team, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Um, he gave that great speech. I think it was during the NBA Finals, where he talked about being present and being in the moment, and that if I think I'm playing so well, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to play terribly because I'm feeding my ego. But if I'm listening to all the critics, well, same sort of thing. I'm going to fall on my face because I'm listening to everything that they're saying that I'm doing poorly. But if I live in the moment, that's everything I can control. And I'm paraphrasing. That's I think I got like the general gist of what he was getting across there. But I think about that a lot with Fish. And I remember there was an interview with Trey a number of years ago where he spoke about that sense of like, when I hit the stage, I don't want to think. I just want to hit the stage and just play. And there's a sense that he's always felt that he is less the star of the show and more a conduit of musical inspiration and creativity are being fed through the four of us up on stage, and we're passing it out to the audience to communicate in a lot of ways. And I think a show like last night, you hear the band just like living in the present and allowing some of these new songs to really bleed their influences into who the band is right now, but also, you know, whatever lessons they've learned thus far, 7, 8 shows into the tour, really speak to itself as well.
Yeah, no question, Brian. I think you stated that really well. I think, well, to go back to Giannis, right? I mean, the guy's
Yeah.
wise beyond his years. Like the
Yeah.
message of like living in the moment should be applied to all of us, and how we analyze each song, to each show, to like the set list. I think obviously you can look back in retrospect and be like, all right, in totality, how was that show, right? But in the moment of how we experience it, I hope we as fans can appreciate that, right? Like take the minute that the band has lived this music and created this music and birthed this music, that like whether or not we love it live, right? They probably loved it for a reason. They created it. So there's a
Right.
reason why they feel like they want to present that back out. And like, but I do love the connectivity of all these guys too in this process. Like I think in every single set you're going to hear each of them sing a different song, right? But I think the connectivity that I see in like you watch them in between songs, right? Because I'm sitting in the lawn, I see them on the screens, like you get enough of a view of like the nonverbal stuff of like how much they enjoy just the banter at times, or them bouncing around on a stage, literally. And those are all amazing things we have to take into appreciation and consideration for, especially like you said earlier, these guys are close to 60 years old, right? Like
Right.
I hope I'm jumping around like that and coming to shows and like that at that age. But I think that's part of like maybe this new mentality of I don't want to say whether you say it 4.0 or post COVID, whatever it is, like it's a new attitude to have when it's coming to live shows, because it was that quickly taken away from all of us. So I think you see that with them too, right? Like a willingness to just share, a willingness to just put it out there and be embraced no matter what it is. And um, thankfully, they've created this community that has this endless amount of support and energy that will keep it going.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to put it. And I think, that theme of gratitude is something that we keep hearing from the band. I keep hearing in every single conversation that I'm having with fans who are going back to their first shows since 2019, since early 2020, is this idea of, you know, we lost this and nobody predicted that we would lose this. I would say honestly, until, I know myself, I was sitting on the couch watching what or hoping to watch a Thunder Jazz game that was going to have playoff implications in March of 2020. And the game got canceled. And I said, okay, I'm going to the grocery store and I'm getting us food for the next 6 months. Like from that moment, like this sense of, oh my God, this can actually be taken away from us. Like the concert on a Tuesday night that I feel like I'm a little bit, like overwhelmed with life, or I'm tired and I don't know if I necessarily want to go to this. Like maybe I should go to this now from like a listener's perspective. And then obviously from the musician's perspective, you just talking about Fish, these guys were at home in their apartments or in their houses wanting to come out and play shows, and you're hearing that right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? Like just to the early comment, right? Like the last few weeks, I think the last few months, maybe in the last 18 months has been a blur for everybody, right? Because
Yeah.
in the moment, we're back to what we were doing. Like it's funny, you go to these shows now, and still a reasonable amount of people that are wearing masks, and like that's good to see. I'm a full advocate and supporter. Please, guys, wear masks, be safe out there, get vaccinated.
Yeah.
But at the same point, right? Like it's as much as you feel like, oh, nothing's different, like you're back at a show, like maybe it feels like it was 2019. It's different. Like we are all different. Like it has changed. Like our mentalities are different. Our attitude is different. Like that can be embraced in this world too, right? Because it's probably impacting us and everything else that we're doing as well.
Totally. Totally. Well, before I let you go, I want to hear your thoughts on what are you expecting tonight? It's a Sunday show. It's the capper of a 3-night run. It's our first of three, no, 4 3-night runs in this summer tour. We're pretty lucky. We get Deer Creek, Atlantic City, the Gorge, and then Dick's, which I will be going to. What are you hoping to hear tonight? Any song predictions on your end?
Super excited, super excited. I mean, like, listen, the phrase you always hear in our world, "Never miss a Sunday show," certainly applies. I live by that. Like, so I'm pumped for tonight. A little earlier show, which is I think maybe for those who are
Quite
here on
nice.
site, yeah, a little bit nicer from the old dad perspective of having to stay up late. But no, excited for it for sure. I think the weather has treated us nicely here too. So I think from a mental standpoint, we're going in like guns blazing, excited. Like I don't have any other shows on my summer tour list at the moment. So
This is it.
like this, I'm like, all right, I'm pumped. I'm excited for it. I think to your comment, right? Like there are a few more 3-night runs coming up, which is really exciting for our world of like their ability to kind of create this like weekend 3-night productions for people. So for the close of our Deer Creek production, this like 3-night run, like I'm pumped. Like I'm like, as I commented a little bit earlier, I'm leaning a little bit more towards like a Friday night type rocker show, which is what I always love to see. So I'm hoping for a tweezer. Obviously, a Mike's in there would be great. And so, no, I think it'll be amazing. I think it's nice to. I'm not looking forward to what Monday morning is going to be like, but I'm definitely looking forward to the next few hours of Sunday, seeing some more familiar faces, and like and hopefully getting a treat of a show again tonight. And I think no matter what the set
Yeah.
list is, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think you got it. And I think the Sunday vibe hanging over, when they get to wake up for the third time in a place, in a place that they have been playing and they come out for sound check. There's always just something like, I don't know. I feel like the band and the audience, like suddenly, I know, like going to 3-night runs, I feel familiar with the venue setup. I know, like, okay, that's the place I need to go to get my food and beverage. That's
Yeah,
the bathroom I need to use. This is the section I want to sit in, and it's like you just walk in and you're home. And I feel like the band gets that as well. The sound is right already, and I would say, and I don't want to raise expectations at all, but we have not had a bust out show yet on this tour. Friday night felt very special. Last night was a little bit more mellow. I think we both agree it was a great show all the same. But I'd love to hear some rarities. Bring us some stuff from like back in the good old days of 3.0 that we haven't heard yet. So
absolutely. I would love some bust outs. That would be nice.
there we go. Awesome, man. Well, Arvin, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for hanging with us. And I hope you have a restful Sunday afternoon while you're getting ready for tonight. I'll be excited for you.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you. Bucks and six, everybody, but go fish and six. I don't know if we can say fish and six, but it applies this summer. So,
Fish always wins.
yeah, exactly. Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely, Arvin. Have a great one. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Arvind is a fantastic guest, and he will be on. You'll be hearing him on Undermine Season 2, which I'm really excited for. We're gonna bring on a very special guest here as well. Someone who was at the shows. One of the best friends I have ever made in this world, who I 20 years ago this summer was getting into fish with, and he is sadly on his way back from Deer Creek. I know that he's hurting a little bit after 2 fantastic nights out, but we're going to bring him on right now. This is Rob Brennan of Supermoon Beer Co. Robbie, how are you, my man?
Bry. Hey,
How you
man.
feeling?
Am I coming in clear?
You're coming in clear. You got some nice
Nice.
foliage behind you.
Yeah. I'm down about, I don't know, half a mile down the street from Comiskey Park right now.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
So, like I was saying before I brought you on, so Rob and I grew up together in the suburbs of Chicago. 20 years ago this summer, um, I got my first fish tape 11/17/1994. Rob, you were the first person I ever listened to fish with, I believe. We listened to Hoist a lot in your Chevy Cavalier,
We
and we
did.
spent basically the next year or so just dreaming of going to see fish shows. We ended up going to see Tab in summer 2002,
And
but then we saw a
famously
couple
bombing the
shows.
ACT the next day.
Bombed the ACT the next day. We still got through college though. It was pretty
Yeah,
good.
it happened.
But tell me, like, are there any memories you have of like I've been thinking about it a lot here over the last couple weeks of what it was like when I was first discovering fish. Do you have any memories of that summer of like getting into fish?
Yeah, I mean that era was just a ton of fun generally. Like we were all kind of figuring it out, and when you came back from camp, famously, um, we it started it lit the fire, and I came into it really curious because I always had sort of a collector's mindset. Like I collected things, and I like had hobbies like that, and I loved to show trading. So I would like we did like mail away show burning and trading, and built a book that we could kind of like catalog, and it started to help me like understand context for years and why things differ and where they ebb and flow stylistically, and how they evolve over time. So we had access to an incredible like decade and a half previous that was all
Yeah.
documented that way. And um, yeah, went to the Wayback Machine and kind of felt where I felt comfortable, and um, ended up, I think you and I both sort of went head over heels into 97 funk era pretty hard. That was kind of what really hooked me. And then I just kind of grew with the band too and changed as they changed. And I've bounced around of where my preferences are, and got to see a bunch of awesome shows over the years. It's been a riot.
Well, the 97 comment is an apt one because, as I'm thinking about this tour thus far, and I think specifically about a bit of what you saw over the last two nights in Deer Creek, I don't want to be blasphemous to anyone out there. 1997 is a milestone year for the band, but what I'm hearing from a jamming standpoint is a penchant to connect around a groove and just expand to that groove over 4 or 5 minute period in time, kind of dement that groove a little bit. And I think specifically of the Blaze On and the Simple from Friday night, where the band just seemed to lock into a rhythm, lock into a groove, and expand upon that. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts were, just like seeing those jams and seeing the show overall on Friday, which I believe that was your first show in at least 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was my first fish show since 7/16/17 at Northerly Island. It was my first
Wow.
show.
So
I
four
saw
shows.
Garcia Peoples just before COVID, and that was my first show back of anything. So it was incredible. And like that, I mean, I don't want to oversimplify it, but like the energy was insane. Friday, like people were there early, like the lot filled up. The energy was incredible. People were so happy to like be there, and it was a lot of people's first show. It felt like, um, yeah, and like sun was shining. We got like insane weather. It just felt very serendipitous that way. It was a nice like welcome back show for me. The Carini opener was like exactly what like everybody was kind of like ready to give a bunch of energy back, and Carini kind of like set that tone. It was super fun. And yeah, I mean, Simple was like the vortex of that show. That's like obviously the main takeaway. It was a pretty adventurous and crazy one. There was a lot of people like looking at each other like what is happening. And like a lot of people checking in with each other, like, are we still in Simple? And uh, that was like that. I kind of stole the show.
Totally.
Yeah, really, really great Friday night.
Yeah, I loved Friday's show. I watched it here at home with my brother, who is another huge Fish fan, and we had the exact same experience during Simple, where we were just kind of laughing after about 10, 15 minutes, and just like,
Yeah,
I don't even know what they're trying to do right now, but it's brilliant. And I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Joe Spago. This tour is like 1997, but with mental clarity and maturity, very exploratory. I like that. I like that a lot.
clarity is a really interesting word. Everyone was kind of commenting that they just felt really tight and kind of locked in, and
Yeah.
Clarity is a really good way of framing it. It was, and there was like a little grit going on. Like there was some kind of attitude happening that I've always leaned more favorably into, like the rock Fish, like kind of the kind of grittier rock, like guitar led Fish, and they kind of went there for sure. There was some meat on the bone.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, yeah, the new effects that Trey is playing with, the combined with, where Page has shifted his Wurlitzer and his Moog one to face Trey, so that he can actually play with some really unique effects while jamming in kind of connection with Trey. Those two aspects like have added this level of confidence, which I think in turn adds that level of attitude that you're talking about, where they're essentially like, we know we're playing really well. We know that we sound really well right now.
You
We're
can
really
tell
good
too.
right
There's
now.
there's a pretty consistent moment where you kind of see Trey realizing he's on,
Yeah.
and like his own response to being like, I'm in the zone, is like a shared thing. And
Yes.
Felt that a couple times last night.
I want to ask you really quick. We just got a question about it, and I want to get your thoughts on it from the live aspect. The lights, the light rig was overhauled before this tour. So, just looking back over the last kind of nearly 10 years, there was a big overhaul from 2013 to 2015. I personally loved that the palette that they were using. There was the screen behind them that could provide these like pastel colors as they were playing. 2017, Kuroda unveiled this moving light rig, which kind of blew a bunch of minds because it looked even more like there was a spaceship over the band. The new light rig kind of combines what we saw in 2013, 14, and 15 with what we were seeing with the moving rig, in the sense that there are these LED beams that can project light above the actual lights to give an additional palette, and the lights also continue to move. I'm curious your thoughts on what the lights looked like from inside the venue.
I really appreciated the lights. I probably should have paid closer attention to the lights, but I was just so overstimulated by everything else happening. And we had a really fun, like easy Page side view last night, and I was just like really locked into like seeing the band in front of me. I think I was maybe not the right person to comment on the lights, but they were really fun. Memorably, Down with Disease lights were super fun. There was a big like kind of release moment when the white light hit the crowd, and there was glow sticks everywhere. That was a memorable one.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think like, and I feel this at a lot of shows. Like I'm thinking like, ahead of going to see them at Dick's, like just seeing the four guys on stage, like working together and in communication with each other is always something I love.
That was honestly more powerful than it's ever been for me. Just being like there, like we did, dinner and a movie quite often, and that was super fun. And it satisfied that itch at that time. But like the notion of not knowing when that was going to be again, like when I would actually see four living human beings, doing what they were doing. Like I found myself actively trying to not hit the screen and just like watch the stage, like watch the four humans doing it, because we've had so little of that, and it was on its own. It was excellent.
Yeah, it's the theme of the tour, and I've heard it from everyone I've spoken with, is this sense of just total gratitude and total appreciation for what is happening. The fact that we're getting it again. I'm right there with you. The last Fish shows I saw were Dick's 2019, and I saw a few concerts after that. But starting in March of 2020, that sense of like, are we ever going to get this again? Is this something that's behind us? Like, are we actually going to be able to gather as people again? And whenever that comes, is this band still going to exist together? So to have the experience right now of watching new shows, going to new shows, listening back the next morning, it's a really special thing.
Yeah. And you
Awesome,
could tell
man.
too, there's always sort of like a summer tour, especially when you do multiple nights. There's like a camp vibe, like you make camp friends and you see, start seeing the same people and all that kind of stuff. And like, it's the subtlety of like, the live experience and the weekend experience and the summer tour experience and like sights and sounds of all of that. We're like, I'll never take it for granted again.
Yeah. That sense of community is something that, like, I don't know, it's really special. I've been doing a lot of interviews over the last couple of months for our second season of Undermine, and the sense of like, I found a group of people who get me in the way that I listen to and absorb and communicate about music. And like, that is something that is ever present across this large community.
Mm-hmm.
And going to the shows, like, you get that true sense of like, our last guest Arvin was talking about how like the drive down, he came from Milwaukee as well. The drive down, like, you're driving I-65, you're in a, kind of slightly different landscape, but like still the Midwest. But then you pull off that exit and you start to suddenly see cars with Fish bumper stickers, and you're like, oh my God, all these people came from all these different places are converging here.
Yeah, the license plate factor. I sent you guys one that was the first one I noticed, and it was on that kind of like 50 miles left stretch of 65 coming in, and you start to see this like convergence of Midwestern plates that you're like, I'm pretty sure that I know exactly who every one of these people are. And then there's like the real subtle ones, and I feel like I should have put more of a statement on my car on the way in, but I felt like my Wisconsin plate was sort of a giveaway.
Yeah. Why are you in Central Indiana this weekend?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, what were kind of your favorite moments from last night? What was your big song of last night?
Yeah, I was super happy with where like set opener started a little soft for me, and went into a really, really cool place. The show stealer for me, hands down, was the What's the Use Cross-Eyed, What's the Use. My friends that I was with had a Talking Heads cover band at their wedding, and so we had, like, when that happened, we just kind of like lost it together. It was super fun. So that one kind of like meant a little bit more with them there. And I just love when they do Cross-Eyed Painless, and it was a riot, and it like spanned, like it went the distance, and that one kind of was a big highlight for me.
Yeah, it was a great version. And like, when I looked back at it this morning, it was like, I think it tracked at like 11 or 12 minutes, but like listening to it last night, there were so many different parts, and like it felt like the band just immediately jumped into an improvisational segment, and then they found a new one, and then another one, and another one. I love jams like that, where like the band just seems to be firing on all cylinders and is able to communicate in such a way that like so much music happens in a shorter period of time. And then to finish it out with this like added bonus of What's the Use closing it out was really, really wild. I loved it.
The kind of effect of that was really funny on the crowd too, because it was sort of a tried and true, like, putting us back in our place a little bit, and that felt really cool. That was a ton of fun.
Yeah, man. Well, really quick before we go, because I know you're heading back to Milwaukee. So for anyone out there from the Midwest, Rob is a fantastic brewer and the owner of Supermoon Beer Co. If you want to just give us a quick plug for anyone in Milwaukee who wants to get some fantastic Belgian beer.
Yeah, we're a small family-owned brewery. We're in the Bayview neighborhood of Milwaukee on the south side of town. Right across the street from Humboldt Park, and we are working on a tap room build out plan as we speak. But right now we're doing draft beer service on our patio during our bottle release weekends. So next bottle release is middle of September. We're releasing 2 new beers that we're really pumped about, and they're going to be fun, and we're going to do patio service all weekend. So you should come have a beer and say hey.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love for all the heads to head out there and hoping for a fish alpine run, because I want to hang out in the tap room with you.
I'll be I may or may not be doing a bus for that one. Keep an eye out.
We planned that in advance.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, it was awesome to check in with you, man. And I really appreciate you giving some thoughts on the shows. Like I said at the top here, Rob and I have been friends for, I think to drinking age now, 21 years, 22 years,
right?
Something crazy like that. And we got into fish together. So it was awesome for me to hear about your experience at the shows. Safe driving back to Milwaukee, and we'll talk here soon, my dude.
Thanks, man. See you soon.
See you soon. All right, guys, that is going to conclude our show here for today, wrapping up a recap of Fish's Deer Creek show from August 7th, 2021. It is Sunday morning here in the Mountain West, Sunday afternoon for many of you on the East Coast and in the Midwest. Really, really excited for night 3 here at Deer Creek. I'm a huge fan of a Sunday night closeout show at for a 3-night run, and especially here at Deer Creek, it feels really special. The last third night of a 3rd night run at Deer Creek was one of my favorite shows of 2003, July 23rd, 2003. It opened with a fantastic Sense and Subtle Sounds, had a great Sneak and Sally, great Disease in there as well. So I'm really excited to see what they have. Really quick before we go, just a quick reminder, HFPod on Tour is presented by Shift Genuine Cannabis. Please visit shiftcannabis.com, register for our big contest that we're working on with them. 2 tickets to August 30th and 31st, including hotel and $500 towards airfare. You can register daily up until the contest concludes right before Sunday at Dick's, where we will be announcing the winner. And then before we go as well, I want to give a shout out to this great comment here from Brian Hensley. Rob and I were just talking a couple minutes ago about the 4 humans on stage and how great it is to see them here, regardless of the music, regardless of everything, just to see them all together. But Brian commented, Mike is not human. And I think I have to share in that sensation. I agree with you, Brian. So thank you everyone here for hanging with us. This was a ton of fun for me this morning. Hanging with Arvind and Rob, talking a bit about August 7th, 2021. We will see you same time tomorrow, breaking down the August 8th show, as well as every day after Fish Tour, or after each Fish show, leading to the end of Las Vegas, 1 p.m. Eastern. You know where to find us. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.